Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Behind the Screen. I am JM, your guide, your uh, discussion leader. The Behind the Screen is a show where we sit back and we talk about game design, game theory, helping build adventures, kind of an outgrowth of everything we do here at the Iconic Production Channel. And today we're continuing our discussion of Cyberpunk. And for those of you I depressed on Thursday, get ready for more of the same today. Because Cyberpunk is not really what I would call an uplifting genre. It is a mirror held up to kind of the worst aspects of our society and the worst aspects of ourselves. And allows us to look at that evil not head on, but again through a mirror, darkly, if you will. So let's talk about mechanics. What mechanics do we want to have that will really reinforce our settings and conceits of the cyberpunk genre? Let me make sure my mic is where I need it to be. So, Bob, good to see you, my friend, this morning. I will just use you as my initial example. There we go. Mic is back where it's supposed to be. Bob, thanks for joining us this morning. So, what do we want out of a cyberpunk game that has mechanics that reinforce the base assumptions of cyberpunk? Well, first, we need the Looming Eye. We need that ever-present megacorp disassociated from humanity presence. So in the true cyberpunk genre, it is the megacorporations, the extranational cannibalistic, gluttonous corporations that basically use humanity as the commodity that they're presenting and using. I was thinking about this, the Alien, in the first Alien movie, and the second Aliens, the presence of the corporation kind of has a cyberpunky feel to it. So how do we do this? How do we have this looming eye? Well, I think there is some things that have grown up around the cyberpunk game genre that help us with this. So first of all is the anonymity of who you are working for. Most games include, I'll use the term from Shadowrun, the Mr. Johnson character, or how in the A-Team movie, all CIA agents are named Lynch. This idea of, hey, you don't really know who you're working for. This person is completely anonymous, and you are just something that is being used by the corporation. Maybe not in the normal channels that the corporation uses, but you specifically are being used by the corporation. And that anonymity goes both ways, right? In Shadowrun, the runners are hired because specifically the corps, if they went to war, would destroy each other. But if they work through the Shadowrunners, there's a level of the Shadowrunners are anonymous. There's this agreed upon corporate veil, if you will, that, all right, well, Bob didn't attack me. This group of Shadowrunners attacked me for reasons unknown. But on the flip side, you want to have things that tie the players not necessarily to the corporations necessarily, but to the people and the places around them. And that is where we get into things like street cred and contacts and infamy. Some of these are Shadowrun mechanics. It's the cyberpunk game I've played the most of. And so there's this idea that, hey, as you do jobs, as you betray jobs, your street credibility, but also your infamy, you have to play these two scores against each other. I think that really adds to the cyberpunk feel of, we're in this together, but we're in this against something that is just so large and faceless that how do we ever actually bring down a megacorp? So those are all really important features of what I think for the paranoia and the oppressive nature of cyberpunk. I think also most cyberpunk games include a really interesting sort of resource mechanic where you have to pay for your lifestyle, because that is something that most runners are just trying to do. They're just trying to make ends meet. They're not trying to, like adventurers, retire or have thousands of gold pieces. They're trying to maintain their gear, and their lifestyle so they can get to the next run, always chasing that final big score or payday. So I think really leaning into the mechanics of gear degradation, gear upgrade, mechanics of lifestyle to grind away, to chip away at the player's resources so that they have to take the next job is pure Cyberpunk goodness. John and Rook, good to see you. Yes, we are back to Cyberpunk, but don't worry, Rook, we'll be out of it on Thursday because I have been receiving updates today that my Blackbird's Servant of the Gods box is on its way. So I'm going to be doing a big unboxing of that on Thursday. Bob, you have to be here so you can experience the glory of Blackbirds. But let's stay focused. Other things that we need the net. So in Torg Eternity, the Megacorp is replaced by the Church. All of Cyberpunk needs that net mechanic, whether it's the Matrix, the God net, the net. It's this idea that there is another layer to reality. And that layer sometimes provides hope and respite, but most often in Cyberpunk, the net is yet another tool of control that the punks, the runners, can turn back against their megacorporation masters, right? It becomes, in Shadowrun, the Tridio addiction, the BTL addiction, Better Than Life, where all of the safeties are turned off and you can experience life in high fidelity in a way that your regular life can't. In Cyberpunk, the Matrix makes sure that everyone is just a number in the system, but hackers can fake IDs, can spoof nets, and can use the same tools of the oppression against the oppressor. And that's kind of the core punk mechanic of this setting, using the tools of the oppressed, of the opposition against the oppressor. You're using the cyberware they produce to make their workers more efficient. You're using that to strike back at the megacorporations. The same with the net, the same with the guns that they weapons they produce. So this is how we get that feeling. You always have to, in Cyberpunk, it's very easy, like many games, it's very easy to go wildly off genre in the rails. Vampire is a game about personal horror and politics, and very often it descends into blood-drinking superheroes of the night. Shadowrun, especially in 4th edition, went very high heroic, and while I enjoyed that, it wasn't cyberpunk. I played it more as a transhuman game. So we want that dichotomy between, hey, these are the tools you're using to strike back, but also these are the same tools that are being used against those you love and those you care for. Oz, good to see you, bud. And so Ozbear asked, how do you get the cat back in the bag when your team gets too many credits after a run? So I've been thinking about that, Oz, and I really think part of that has to do with the anonymity. One, it's the gear wear and tear. One, it's the lifestyle. But two, a big run paints a target on your back. And if you score a big run, you've probably done a job large enough that the corporation you struck at, they're coming back after you. And so I think a couple of corporate hackers and a server striking back at a team who maybe didn't cover their tracks as well or got a little too big for their britches is the perfect way to kind of kneecap the players and bring them back down to, hey, what do we have to do to survive? Because survival is a key experience, and we'll talk about that next Tuesday, of Cyberpunk. And then last we have the tech. This tends to be why people play Cyberpunk games, because Cyberpunk, Red, Shadowrun, these games are all about the tech. You can go gun nut, you can go hacker nut, you can go vehicle nut on all of these things. And you have lists and lists of ways to customize your guns and your vehicles and yourself. This is... Yes, Rook, I totally agree with your term there. This is part of the draw. But I think key to the cyberpunk genre is, yes, technology has to exist, and it has to be cool and razor edge. Like, you want to use a term from many a Shadowrun book, you want that soda gear, the state-of-the-art gear, and it can't, because technology is such an important part of the cyberpunk genre, and because the grind of technology is so important of cyberpunk, you need new gear coming out to show that, hey, you were hot last year, now you're not, because you don't have the latest model. I mean, it's very the marketing thing. Oh, you got our car last year. Oh, this year's car is even cooler. It will make you even more attractive and more virile and more. More guns, more gear, more vehicle, more tech. Just as a foundational layer of the consume this product while waiting for next product mentality and slavery of cyberpunk. It's what gets you in, like, perfectly into the mindset. I think it is a subtle but brilliantly done nod to the genre that goes kind of unnoticed. It is a meta commentary on the genre. We consume more books of gear because we want the state-of-the-art thing, not realizing that's exactly what the corporations want you to do. Yes, John. Hundreds. Oh, it was John's comment. Yes. Hundreds of pages of gear. Hundreds. Hey, Ian. Good to see you. Yeah. Ugh. It is just... It is... Anyway. The other thing we need is... And this is where I think... Torg Eternity gets the Megacorp overshadow with the Godnet, or with the church. They get the Godnet down, they get the tech down. I think they fail at one key mechanical component of what we need in a good cyberpunk game. And they've got an explanation around it, but I think you can't just leave this one out. It's the loss of humanity that technology brings us. It's the fact that in this relentless grind, in this attempt to rebel or make ourselves more desirable to the people who hurt the megacorps and then buying into their own economy, we need that loss of humanity. We need the fact that we're stripping away our humanity when we put these pieces that make us survive. If we want to go into some symbolism, there's definitely some good references to the garments of skin here, which we can talk about later. But the idea that everything we do to make ourselves tougher, more survivable, more ready to face the world of cyberpunk makes us inevitably less human. So we talked about essence in Shadowrun is kind of a tentpole mechanic that I think they could do a lot more with. Cyberpunk Red uses cyberpsychosis just beautifully. I would even say Rifts, although Rifts strays away from the cyberpunk and doesn't look at it very clearly. There are two core OCCs in the main book that are the epitome of this loss of humanity, and that's the crazy. Hey, I got superpowers, but the longer I go, the more detrimental it is to my stability and my mental health, until my community goes, you're too much of a liability and a danger to be around. And the juicer, I'm going to pump myself full of drugs to get super abilities at the expense of maybe 18 months of life. There's this loss of humanity that I think we need to have mechanical reinforcement on if we want the cyberpunk genre to really pop and to really lean into those themes. And so on Tuesday next week, we're going to lean into how do we bring these out in the genre at the game table. It's a tough thing to do. It's akin to cosmic horror in the fact that there is this relentless grind of the setting against the players. And while you may have small victories, you're never going to have the big victories. Which is why also I'm looking forward to getting into transhumanism that has a lot of the same trappings and a very hopeful outlook. So looking forward to that. But we will continue with our look at Cyberpunk next Tuesday when we get into the experience. How do we do this? Also, yes, congratulations to Rook on the announcement. Just gonna toss that out there. And yes, transhumanism, John, wonderful. Just there's some. Now, granted, it's a completely Gnostic construct, but I think there's some great games that do it well. So that brings us to the end of this episode of Behind the Screen. Again, we're just looking at, I know it's a short one, but cyberpunk is a genre that if I dwell on too long, really bums me out for the rest of the day. So check out all the other great shows we have on Iconic Production. We will be back tonight with the next installment of our Torg Eternity game, the Diamond Armament, which is become a very meta commentary on movie making and resistance and art, completely unplanned by me. And so if you are interested at all, that is it's just been a lot of fun. So looking forward to that. And again, on Thursday, we're going to be doing an unboxing of Blackbird's Servant of the Gods, and hopefully without all of the jackhammering noise that I had in the background the last time we talked about Blackbirds, I will be much more excited and animated and, coherent in the words that I'm sharing with you. So thank you to everybody who showed up this morning, to Bob, to John, to Grom, to Rook, and to Ian. We will see you all on... I was just looking at Rook's comment. Yes, it definitely looks at the evils of... Cyberpunk is a genre that looks at the trends of Western society, and I think attributes a lot of malice to them. But unfortunately, we're seeing a lot of malice play out in how that goes about. So I do think that there's some truth to that. It looks at the evils of Western society, or the trends of Western society, and amplifies them, possibly to the absurd, to shine a light and show us a mirror into that. So until next time, stay safe, stay healthy, stay gaming. I will see you all on Thursday for some just relaxing look at beauty as we look at the Blackbird Servant of the Gods unboxing. Until then, have a good one.